as content creators, we love to focus on the horrible bits of Shadowlands and BFA because they were really unfun and they really made it horrible for players to actually play the game, especially for people who really just wanted to play the game, right? Yeah, like Bane is what exactly, Nowhere Man. The thing that I think oftentimes gets completely overlooked, but is actually far worse when it comes to expansions like BFA and Shadowlands, is the tremendous amount of time that it takes to design convoluted systems such as what BFA and Shadowlands had. Those systems aren't easy to design. Those systems take months, if not years, to design and to keep up with, because those systems have to be updated. You have to continuously come up with new traits to add on to the gear and new legendary effects to give to players. These systems sort of make it impossible for you to just make a good game because those systems end up taking all of your time. Again, this is where I love what Dragonflight is doing, because Dragonflight is going back to the, shall we say, tried and tested method of make a game, make a world, make the world interesting, and then let people explore the world. Don't make systems, don't convolute the game, just let people play a very straightforward game. Let the raiders raid, let the dungeoneers dungeon, let the PvPers PvP, and let the casuals casual. And that's where those rushes come in. That's where we see storylines like what Nowhere Man said, with Bane's storyline and Sylvanas' storyline. Remember, there was still a whole loyalist storyline that just completely got forgotten. Just nothing happened with the loyalist storyline except for like a few choice words right at the end to the loyalists, which of course wasn't what the loyalists were expecting at all. You have the Anduin storyline that came to a very abrupt end. You have the Tyrande and Sylvanas build-up that came to a very abrupt end. You have the Zuval story that came to a very abrupt end. And you have the Arthur storyline that basically never even started. It never even kicked off. It was ended with us not even seeing Arthas. We just saw a globe of blue. We saw a bit of anima. And then he was gone. And I wonder if things like that isn't the result of convoluted systems such as what Shadowlands had. They had to spend so much time just getting those systems updated and sort of interesting that they didn't have time to actually just let the game be, to actually let those storylines play out. They didn't have the time to add the storylines in which we would explore Arthur's story, or Arthur's journey, or where we would explore Bane's story and Bane's journey. Because how could they? It was all hands on deck trying to make the systems work. So maybe in Dragonflight, this is an opportunity for Blizzard to do something differently, to do something better, most likely. It's production pipeline issue. They have too much done when they make the decision to cut, and then they can't rework it in time, and the whole thing feels rushed and disjointed. Oh, well, that's also true. That's also true. That's another way in which these things really impact, because you really want to make the expansion work, but at the same time, you have so many systems that you have to update that you have to end up cutting things that you won't be able to get to. Because you realize, okay, I know that you guys wanted to do this massive Odin storyline. We don't have time for this. Every single one of us are working on making, conduits work. We can't do jack shit here. So, good luck. Arcfade, how you doing, bro? Thanks for the first chat. Really appreciate that. Yeah, but just leave the story thread open instead of concluding it in the most unsatisfactory way possible. You see, the problem is, even if they just left it open, that would piss a lot of people off too. Plus, I have this feeling that they really just wanted to be done with Shadowlands. That's the feeling I get when I look at how Shadowlands came to an end. It's like they really just wanted to go, okay, we're done. Fuck it. It's over. We'll try we'll try better, or we'll do better next time. But for now, this is it. Let's just finish all these storylines. We never want to revisit these storylines ever again. So screw it. That's the feeling that I get, at least. MMO Aiden, that's also possible that they just wanted to get rid of all the legacy characters. Massive possibility right there. Hypothetical for you. You were given $100 million in the animation team behind Arcane and are told to make a WoW series. Where would you start? What would you adapt? So, I would start... Oh, that's a difficult question, actually. So, it's one of two. Actually, there's three possibilities of where I would start that I think would make a very interesting anime. The first is start before the movie. So I always thought that the WoW movie failed because it started at the wrong point. It started in the middle of the conflict rather than at the beginning of the conflict, or at the end of the conflict would have been fine too. The issue is it started with the orc homeworld already fucked, never really explaining why the orc homeworld were fucked or how orcs even worked in the beginning. It never gave people the opportunity to care about the orcs. So that's why a lot of people that watched the Warcraft movie sort of almost immediately just accepted that the Alliance are the good guys. And the movie really plays out as such, that the Alliance really is just the good guys. Which we know isn't true. We know that's not actually how World of Warcraft is supposed to be. So I would probably start there. I would start about 20 years before the events of the movie, showcasing orc culture, orc clans, the fights, the infighting, the war, the inevitable corruption by the demons and how that took place and how the events that led up to that taking place, and then also showing the Alliance and the problems that the Alliance had, because many people don't remember that the Alliance had incredible problems with the Night Elves before the Night Elves eventually joined. There were massive infighting, there were massive events happening on Azeroth itself long before the events of the Warcraft movie. And I would basically have it play out as almost like, you guys remember Game of Thrones, right? So having that jump around, but then also take a bit of Game of Thrones, take a bit of Witcher. So you're jumping around from like culture to culture and peoples to peoples, but also you're jumping in time. So you can jump, to history and then jump to sort of future events, just to give people an overview of the situation of the events that we call World of Warcraft. The other place that I think would be really cool to start would be Illidan, the childhood of Illidan and Malfurion and Tyrande, the training, his life story, his inevitable turn into what we now know to be Illidan, I think could be really interesting, because a lot of that will include Sargeras, the Burning Legion. We'll see a lot of those storylines, and of course, along with those storylines, I think very cool things would be things like Queen Azshara, her inevitable deals with the old gods. That could be a really cool storyline as well. Or then my third option would be the story of Arthas, which I also think would be just absolutely incredible. I would love to see an animated short, or not even a short, an animated series of Arthas and his life, because there's again a lot of people that don't know much about that. Nerdy Jessica, how you doing? Thank you very much. I appreciate that. A full-on War of the Ancient series, that could be cool too. Have you seen the FF16 trailer? I don't think so, Kane, but we can absolutely watch that. No. I haven't watched the Legacies animated short yet, Orius. Someone just asked me if I had $100 million and an animation team from Arcane, what series would I make? You see, the thing with the Arthas one, the reason I would probably go for the Arthas one if you pushed me, so many people don't know the story of Arthas, and the story of Arthas is so cool, because Arthas struggled so much with trying to figure out the light. The light would not respond to Arthas the same way it would respond to everyone else. For a while, actually for a really long time, Arthas wasn't sure if he was ever going to be able to master the light, which would have been a massive problem because the kingdom of Lordaeron cannot be ruled by a king that isn't of the light. Every king and in the history of Lordaeron have always been either a priest or a paladin. So Arthas had to figure out the light. And it came not just, eventually. It came because of incredibly hard work. Arthas put so much effort and time. And it is that sort of, that feeling of not being good enough and that drive to be the best that would ultimately lead to Arthas's downfall. Arthas's downfall is a Greek tragedy in all but name, because Arthas's downfall was ultimately, it was his own doing. He undone himself due to who he was, and it wasn't because he wanted to be evil. It was just because he couldn't stand to see his people suffer, and he was willing to go to any lengths to save his people. And that ultimately destroyed his people. Which is just, fuck. That would be such a cool animated show to watch.